welcome all to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are podcasts. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. Send us your questions and comments, dj@ArtistFirst.com. Now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And the wait is over. In case you were waiting for the last 7 days, we're back.
Okay.
And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And the wait is over. But in case you were waiting impatiently for us to come back onto the air, I feel sorry for you.
Oh, dear. Here we go.
No, I don't, because I think that would be cruel. But tonight's topic is waiting in one regard, right?
Yes.
Now, this, to do 10 seconds of inside baseball, our topics, we kind of developed them organically in a panic at the last minute. I mean, no, organically. And
oh, dear. Are you ready for this, people?
Yes, are you ready for this, people? And this one occurred to me, though, way early. This one was when I was driving, which, when you're driving, I'm sure everyone has this experience. When you're driving and you're on a familiar route, for argument's sake, you're not looking for something or stressed out, your mind is free, and oftentimes you'll get some interesting sort of insight, right? Or some problem that you've been thinking about the answer might suddenly pop in, because when the mind is left into, doing the job it's supposed to do, not telling you stories and not, trying to feed one alternate ego or another, when it's doing the job it's supposed to do for us, it's very good at bringing in the solution to a problem or bringing in some sort of insight. So this topic sort of popped in while I was driving, and I thought that this is very appropriate for the time of the year we're in and for perhaps the last few years that we've been in. And the topic is waiting. And I think we can all agree that everybody hates to wait.
Yeah, initially, yes. I don't know of any child that likes to wait.
Right.
It's got to be now.
It's got to be now. Or if you tell a child, you have to wait, they're like, Christmas is a perfect example in one regard, because what are you doing? You're waiting for Christmas.
You're waiting to be able to open your presents.
Open your presents, and everyone's familiar with the the night before, where the kids, the famous poem, their visions of sugar plums, where they're up late and they're excited, and why? Because they can't wait. And this Tolle quote came in because it's an interesting insight into waiting from the point of view of what are you doing when you're waiting. Tolle's basically, to sort of summarize it, Tolle's take on it is that when you are waiting, what you're really saying is, I don't want the present moment. I want some future moment. This one is not the one I want. I don't want to be here and now. I want to be there and then. And that is very much an ego-feeding construct, because the ego then gets involved. It says, well, why isn't it the moment I want? This one is preventing it, or if only they had done this, or if they're out to get me and they're trying to make me wait, and they're forcing me to sit here, and the stories will come, and the anger will come, or the frustration will rise. And so waiting is if you want to see what people are made of, if you want to kind of evoke their worst nature, make them wait. Put them in a situation where they can't do anything but wait for something to happen. And you will see, some pretty enraged individuals arise pretty quickly.
No, this is true.
It's true, more than true. So we thought this is a good topic. So would you like to lead with the quote, and then we'll launch from there?
Sure, we can do that. Waiting is a state of mind that says we want what we don't have. Therefore, with every kind of waiting, we produce an inner conflict between now and the projected future. This greatly reduces the quality of our life. Are you a habitual waiter? Tole.
Totally. And I like that from the point of view of, are you a habitual waiter? But to jump sort of into our experience, and I think where we became sort of broken, if you will, with the paradigm of waiting was in the hospital, with Christopher, because one of the most frustrating things in the beginning was waiting. First of all, we were waiting to find out what was wrong with him, and then once we knew, we were waiting for an appointment, or waiting for a test, or waiting for a procedure, or just waiting with no reason whatsoever, except we couldn't go anywhere, but we had to wait. And it was horribly and terribly, torturously frustrating initially. And then it just kind of broke us.
Yeah. Yeah. You are face to face in a situation like that with your wants and desires and what is in the moment. And that is the perpetual choice, moment by moment, in that situation. Parents were always given the choice of, well, the next step is, and as Michael just said, you're waiting for a test result. You're waiting for the analyses of the results. You're waiting for recommended ways to go to try to bring about a cure. You are waiting for the doctor's boards to confer and see if there are other alternatives or possibilities. You are waiting always on something other than your own desire. And the truth of the matter is your desire the first and most important concern in this moment? Because that is what you saw. You saw parents who always felt that they should feel right about it all. And I don't feel right about it all. So what should I do? I should be doing something. So they cast about, looking for some positive avenue of action, but it's positive in their mind with them and their concerns first and foremost. I did not habitually see both parents concerned with the state of the child and where she or he happened to be in that moment. Were they trying to help explain what was going on? Or reassure the child? Or were they just making decisions with no consideration at all that the child has an opinion? It was fascinating to see.
But good.
But this is a baseline, because many parents feel that, well, if I'm not okay with it, then my child can't be okay with it.
There certainly was that, but I was sort of saying that, in essence, the waiting, the waiting that let's just personalize that we were going through was kind of teaching you over and over again until you learned that lesson, that your your consideration of the moment, what you thought should happen, didn't mean anything to the present moment. And what I mean by that is that if you didn't learn to wait, or learn that waiting didn't matter, that your opinion of whether it was taking longer or shorter, or whether it should be longer or shorter, didn't matter. Once you got there, we learned to wait. And I'll speak for myself. I'm not a naturally patient person. That wasn't part of my initial nature. I wanted to fix it. I wanted to find the solution, find the path, find what we were going to do, and make a plan and execute it. That's the engineer kind of in me. And that wasn't natural to me. That in essence, there was no thing, like you just said, there was no thing that I could do to make it not be where we were. I didn't want this present moment. Looking back, this is a very insightful way of saying about it. I didn't want the present moment. I didn't want us to be waiting. I didn't want us to be there. And in essence, the supremacy or the primacy, or really just the reality of the present moment, is what became the truth that we started to live after a while. There was that whole idea of that you could change the present moment, or that if you didn't want it, you could make it happen, and the ego loves that. We wrote a little bit about this, and it'll be up on the website. But in essence, the ego loves telling you the story that if you just yell loud enough, or if you demand that, like you would see in the hospital, some of the parents would demand, you've got to get me a better result. Now, I don't accept that it's 80% or 90%. I want 100%. I want to be first. I don't want to wait. I'm important. That's the ego talking. The ego doesn't. The ego is in the moment of now and doesn't want it. It wants to say, well, if I would just stand up and tell everybody how important I was, they'll. And if I would say to them, I don't want that result. I want a better result. They'll make it happen. Or if I would, whatever it is, it'll tell you the story, all the fantasies that are really all about what? Control. The ego wants to control the present moment and turn it into what it wants, not what it is. Right? And what you just said about the parents, they want an action, or they want to, you want to make this bargain with reality. Well, if I do this X, Y, or Z, and I give you this token and this cookie and this piece of this amount of money and yell this loud, suddenly all those things that you were telling me, well, oh yeah, those weren't true. Those are only for the people who will wait. This is for you because you're special. You're special. So we'll open up the door. We'll push aside all the people who were less important than you, and then you'll get the real treatment as 100% cure, and you're gonna be first in line, and everything's going to be wonderful, and you're going to be able to go back to sleep in your old egocentric, everything is about me life again. And that doesn't happen.
No.
And what you learn is that the reality of the moment, and we learned that the reality of the moment, what we were doing right now, was the most important moment. And once we learned that, it was still terrible and horrible and still a terrific daily, moment-by-moment challenge. But we could laugh in the midst of it. We could take a moment of joy from the moment of now and be in that moment of now. And who led the way there, Margaret? Christopher led the way, because he didn't see it the way we saw it. He was still in his present moment. He said, okay, this is what we got to do now, but then I'm going to do this next. I'm going to go to the kitchen and cook something. I'm going to have this video game to play. He stayed closer to the moment of now, and not in the moment of wait for the next good moment that I don't like the moment of now kind of attitude. Don't you think?
Oh, yes. Let a little child lead the way.
Mm.
Their ability to be in the moment, the present moment, is a constant thing. And they learn how not to do that when they get to the age of reason. But for the most part, children younger than that enjoy the moment that is. We as adults are taught that we have to manage everything.
Yes.
You're supposed to manage the progress of your child. You're responsible for this. You are supposed to, and if you listen to the many experts that are out there,
the experts, of course, yes.
You will be given many lines of instruction, just like a program. And there are many people who really want that kind of life. Those are the ones that are asleep, because they don't have to think about what they have to do next. It's right there in the program. But they're not living in the moment. So if you're relying only to execute the program, what is the baseline of that? Why are you giving permission for that when you haven't considered anything? And the response usually is, well, they're the experts, they know. So if I follow this program, we'll get to the end result that we want. And if it turns out that they're trying to talk to you, explain to you that nothing is certain, you demand the 100% or above the percentage they gave you. No, you have to demand it, and then they'll give it to you if you demand it. And all I could think of at that point is, you're a 4-year-old child having a tantrum because you don't like it. What does your child feel or think at this moment? Are you going on and on talking about what you did? Or are you listening to what kind of day your child had and may need to talk to you about? It really hurt when we did this procedure, and I didn't like it. Or why is that necessary? Can you explain that? And sometimes the response is, oh, that's what the doctor said to do, which is about as nebulous as Santa Claus. You're like...
Well, it's a good point you bring up there, because the parents, in their focus on themselves, and in their frustration in being made to wait, would put everything onto anyone else, including their child. So that the rather than say, yes, honey, we have to wait, and we'll wait together, and this is where we are right now. We'll just be in this moment, and maybe we'll find something interesting to do. And tell me about how you feel and what you felt. Not what you are, but what you felt. No, all that was off to the side. I'm frustrated. I'm not going to wait. It's I. It's all the ego story. And, I haven't got time to hear about you. I've got to demand that this happen and demand that happen, and make sure that they understand, and make sure, and if you just keep bothering them, they'll finally, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You got to keep on, push them and talk to them and make sure they know you're first, and you got to be this. And see everything I'm doing for you. You should be just grateful for all the things I'm doing for you. And all that is pushing everything on everyone else through this wonderful ego that is in the moment of now, and saying, I don't want this moment of now, and everything around me, including the person, the being who's actually in trouble, the child who's actually sick, doesn't matter, because the ego is supreme. I'm being forced to wait. I'm going to make sure that we make it right. And that, that's why waiting, I'm not sure if this is true, but I think in the back of my mind, and maybe you'll correct me, it isn't part of one of the practices, the disciplines, is learning to wait, learning to be in this patient silence, kind of eschewing this idea that you're the important one, that you've got to be first.
That's a result of being able to abide in your consciousness. It's not a purpose, because the minute you focus on it, it's your ego focusing on itself again.
But I think, yes.
It's your ego focusing on itself again. Your ego's telling itself, I've got to wait, as opposed to being in the moment. Being in the moment naturally falls into whatever is happening.
Right. What I'm saying is there a practice of in essence, to instruct, of making people just learn to wait as part of the disciplines? I don't know if there is, but it seems like there would be. Meditation is sort of that, but in essence, what you're really putting, at least in my mind, I'm thinking that the student is actually put into the position where they just have to wait. Basically do nothing. Just sit there. What do you mean just sit there? Just sit there. In other words, your fascination, what you were just talking about, the whole idea that the ego is telling itself to wait, so it's focusing on itself.
That's why they don't tell you to wait.
Perhaps, what I'm really saying is there a practice of, in essence, putting the student into a situation where they are forced to wait, and letting them deal with that frustration or find the kernel of it. And why I'm even thinking about it in this way is that through what happened to Christopher, we were thrown into the situation, and I'll talk about myself particularly, where an impatient person was forced to wait, to the point where it broke me, from the point of view of the idea that you can control the present moment, that if you just figure it out, you just spend enough time thinking about it, you find out as much as you can possibly find out about it, and then find the insight that nobody else is seeing, and find the way. All those wonderful conceits were all revealed to be conceits.
Mm-hmm.
And that was this isn't the right way to say it, but it was a wonderful thing to have happen from that point of view, because you were put in a situation where you had to realize that the now was the now, that the reality really was reality, and it was very difficult for everyone involved. But once that lesson is learned, it changes you forever. It changed all of us forever, in the sense that the present moment became what it is. There's nothing that now happens after that. If you've gone through it, that now happens after that, you can't find it within yourself to say, yeah, here's where we are. No matter how much we might want it not to be, this is what it is. And we learned that lesson. It's a place that we know how to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult to get there, in one regard.
It is your habitual perception that is broken.
Yes.
Okay? When you are in that moment and your ego wants to control it, and your emotions are in play, and it wants something else, what is learned is, yes, I feel this way. What is happening right now? And you open your perception. at that point to what is the state of being for the child who is suffering right now, the people around him tending to him, the nurses, the doctors, the orderlies, the all the different branches that are trying to, quote unquote, help you. So you open your perception so that you have this very broad field of operation. And you just understand that, first of all, it's not about you. That's the first thing you drop out of your perception. In fact, what you actually wind up doing is realizing that everything that you're perceiving is you. So because it's all related in some way, shape, or form, you open up to the spirit aspect of you and ask, what needs to be done right now to tend to the need of this child? So things begin to fall into place at that point. And when you are in that moment, waiting is a byproduct.
Right. It becomes that.
But you must cultivate the ability to be able to pull away and perceive things in the third person. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Because instead of being the first person in I feel, or in the second person of you feel, where it's only about the kid, you're in the third person.
It just is.
Observing, understanding. If you don't understand, you hold and you are asking for guidance, because I do not perceive this, and I acknowledge freely there are many things I do not perceive. In this kind of mode, you can become overwhelmed by the amount of information that's coming in, because you are operating on so many different levels. And my prayer was always, Lord, just show me exactly what needs to be done right now. I don't have to understand it all. Where is the path where there is light at the end of this road? And that's all I could hold on to, because I was getting so much information, and it's level upon level. There are many needs. You have your child, you have, as I said, the environment around him, the room that he's in, the immediate needs of, does he need certain electrolytes to maintain his blood level? Is he actually eating, or is he so nauseous he can't hold anything down? Do we have to intubate? What is going on at this point? Do we need to clean or clear his Broviac, his whatever is in him to maintain? What is the state of his nurses today? Are they capable? Are they able to get this? What is the state of the blood bank? Do we need transfusion? What is the state of the doctors? Are they having a conference, a doctor's meeting to discuss the case, because we've tried every option? Maybe there's something else. Do we have, and it's like boom, 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 boom. I need to be in contact with the rest of my family. How are my other children doing? Did we lose him on the bus? Okay. Calling different people, trying to solve problems right in front of you that are physically right in front of you or miles away. You learned to wait on the internal promptings to show you what path to walk for the best outcome.
And that took some process to get there. And that process, starts with this ego state. When you first come into it, you're there. You're in this, if I only demand more. We saw that. And then I think, this is just an analogy. Don't get, it's not exactly what happens. But there's that 7 stages of grief. Remember that whole silly thing? There's a grieving process that in essence burns away the ego, if you will. Because part of it is the ego first wants to control. It wants to rage at everything, right? But it gets to the end, and the end state is where, in essence, the ego dies, and you enter that state of acceptance. And that's what Tolle is talking about a little bit here, too. When you accept the present moment of now as this is what is, and you've burned away everything that you're talking about. You understand that now, in the third person, in the being state, the now is the now. And what I can do is what I can do. And what I can't do is what I can't do. And that's all it is. And it's not even the I. It's just what can be done, what can't be done. We accept the moment of now. We go until we're tired, and we sleep. And the next day comes. Each moment, you burn that all away, but it is a process. I see you. So let's take this moment to burn away. We burned away the first half hour very quickly. Let's go back to the studio, have a little break, and we'll come back on the other side, and you'll just have to wait.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Moonstones and murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some Moonstones and murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is Book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir. There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Hi, this is Hannah Ruth from the band Wild Hum. Check out our new Americana Soul CD, Wild Hum, at our website, wildhum.music.com. And you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Let's not keep them waiting. It's Michael and Margaret Lyons.
We're happy to wait for everybody. It's okay. And I hope everyone was happy to wait for us. We are talking about waiting tonight, and some of our experience in being forced to learn to wait. I mean, there's a reason why they call people who are in hospital patients. Yes, you literally have to wait. You have to wait on everything. And, when we first, just to digress for one more moment on this, when we first were put into that situation, it was like we had been put into an alien world. In our book, we talk about it. Because nothing that we were used to, you couldn't, everything that you would do on a normal, quote-unquote, normal day that you thought, your ego had thought, this is a normal day, I can do this and this and this and this and this, we'll go here, we'll go there. No, all that was gone. We were stuck, and frankly, Margaret did most of that waiting, and certainly in the beginning and all throughout. There were weeks and months on end where the life that was being lived in the hospital was this within this couple of rooms. During there was a period of time when Christopher was isolated. He was having a bone marrow transplant, and if you don't know what that is, count your blessings. But regardless of that, you were basically confined to one 10-by-10 room for months. And that room was special. You couldn't enter the room unless you were basically sterile. You wore sterile garments. You had to wash very, very thoroughly. You had to mask up. People are talking about all the things they had to do for masking up and whatever. Not that procedure. Those procedures were what you have to do, and even more so when somebody is going through this particular phase of a treatment. Doesn't matter. Talk about learning, you burn away through suffering, and this is talked about many times in many practices in Buddhism and Gautama Buddha and all. suffering burns away your ego's concept of how important it is, of whether somebody, how I should be first. I. Because the present moment of being in a cancer ward or in a transplant room will burn that out of you, or it will drive you insane, one or the other, because you learn that now is the only thing that really matters, and nothing ever really. There was never anything different about your life, but you just had this idea, this ego concept that somehow you knew you were able to determine, chart your own destiny and tell people what needed to happen and make sure the present moment was what you wanted it to be. None of that is true. It's all a conceit and a lie, which the ego is very happy to tell you about because it makes it the center of the story all the time. Once you see past that, you can't ever go back. But you're in a realer world, and it's a more honest world.
Well, you're living in the real, as I would like to call it. Everyone around you it's very interesting, because when I look at it, it's almost as if people, energetically speaking now, they have these bubbles of concepts that are floating around their head, if you can imagine this. And when they want it a certain way, they pick that bubble out of the air and they throw it on their heads. And this is the world that I want to live in. So I'm operating in this world, and they project out from this bubble they've chosen, where, of course, they're the center of attention, and my happiness means everything. So everybody's got to make me happy. That is the purpose of everybody else in the world, is to make me happy.
Right. And they treat everyone as though that's their job.
Right. That was, I think, a Peanuts thing with Lucy.
Yes, Lucy was the consummate ego.
The psychiatrist is in. But that was the purpose of everyone else, was you're supposed to make me happy. And she was screaming, well, someone's not doing their job.
Right. So I remember, I know exactly, and Schultz was beautiful in his perception. I'm not happy. Somebody's not doing their job. And that's the ego. That's the screaming 4-year-old ego that comes up, and it's screaming from within its bubble that I'm not happy. Somebody's got to. So it's somebody else's fault. They're not doing their job. Right,
because the ego has accepted the premise that everyone is in this world to make me happy. And you sit there and you go, really?
It's a lovely premise. Were it true, first of all, the world would be a hideous nightmare for everyone else. But were it true, wouldn't it be wonderful that you are the center of the universe, and everything else in the universe is there to make you happy? And in one way, it's a horrible hell, but it sounds wonderful if you just kind of remain in the bubble.
Well, it basically means that you are not responsible for you. You're giving that responsibility to someone else. And that's a very dangerous thing. Because when you give responsibility for your happiness to someone else, that means that they can make you as miserable as they want to make you. That's a formula that's ripe for absolute control, control over you.
And I love that if you turn it around, because once you do the opposite, when you say, my happiness is 100% my responsibility, the converse, no one in the world, in the universe, can make you unhappy, because you choose to be. It is 100% within you. You say, I don't care what you do, I'm still happy. It drives people crazy if you say that to them. I don't care what you do, I'm still happy. And those who want you to be miserable will be miserable because they can't make you miserable.
Pretty much. In a nutshell, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
They then the obsession begins of trying to make you unhappy.
Right. Right, and it gives them a hobby for the rest of their lives. They're trying to make you unhappy, and you just smile and nod and say, "I'm so happy anyway." And it just drives. If you want to drive your enemies crazy, be happy, regardless of them, because you know what? It does two things, and this is not why to do it, because it's also an ego conceit. But the fact that you have taken, as Margaret says, 100% responsibility for your own happiness, it puts you in the position you thought you wanted the other way. You're actually now really are in control of the only thing that matters, your being state. And you always had control of it. But it draws back your power from all the things that you thought you wanted to give the rest of the universe the responsibility of making you happy. Well, that makes you a powerless thing that anyone can make miserable.
Well, and I don't think people realize that other people love to make you miserable.
Mm.
Did you ever think of that? They're not there to make you happy. That's the wrong premise. I suppose the better way to look at it is reverse. People are here to make you miserable.
Yes. It's not quite correct. But the ego would love to assume that, but in one way, the premise that which is external of your being has control over your happiness should be immediately rejected, but the ego somehow likes that because it has that fantasy that somehow that everyone will make me happy if I just ask for it. But in fact, what happens is everyone makes you miserable. But the ego will take it either way. It's perfectly happy to sit there and say, everyone's out to get me, as long as it's still all about me. The ego doesn't mind misery as long as it's still all about it. It takes its identity from misery or happiness as long as it's all about, well, they're all here to make me happy, or they're all here to make me miserable. As long as they're all here about me, it's okay.
It's all about me.
It's all about me.
Don't you understand? It's all about me. And that's the very first premise that needs to be looked at.
Exactly.
It's just when, as I said, the energetic bubbles that people put on their head are the ones that are closest to them, centered to them. They very, very rarely extend themselves outward for a bubble that is inclusive. Isn't that interesting? It's always a bubble that is exclusive.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what can I exclude from what is going on so that I could feel better about me?
In fact, the best bubbles, the best ego bubbles are the ones that really are everyone in the world is lesser than me, right? That's the real ego bubble. When you really grab, the ego loves to grab and puts it on its head and breathes that air, that sweet, sweet air of everyone is wondering what I'm thinking, what I'm doing. That's the social media bubble, right? Everyone's concerned with what I'm eating for dinner. Everyone wants to know what I'm wearing today. Everyone wants to know what color I like and what music I listen to and and that's just tuck it all in all around your chin and it feels wonderful and everyone's looking at me and I'm so beautiful and wonderful. And that's the ego bubble. It's the social media is such an ego enabler. It's an ego enhancer, an ego amplifier. It's like everyone wants to know how I cut my toenails and everyone wants to know what my knees look like or my nether parts, or everyone wants to know everything about me. And if you really took off the bubble and really understood that nobody cares about you, but it's not even that, because that's the ego uses that too. No one else in the universe is responsible for you except you. And that's not a social media position. But it's a refreshing, wonderful, true position. because then you'll be as happy as ever, and you can turn off all your social medias and all your phones and everything else. You can use them if you want to, use them if you don't want to, not use them if you don't want to, and it doesn't matter anymore. Because in the present moment of now, just sitting with someone you love in complete silence and listening to the rainfall or watching the ocean and not telling anybody about it still happened, still happening, and you're still sharing that moment and that energy, and it's wonderful, and no one needs to know. And those moments, which no one needs to know, end up one place within the spirit, in the eternal, within your eternity bank, that live on beyond your corporeal existence, have nothing to do with ego or social media.
Something that is shared. And when it's shared, it becomes amplified. But see, isn't that interesting, though? That's the illusion that social media really gives you. You feel that, once I put it on the internet, it's there forever. And it's like, well, yes and no.
Right.
It's a yes and a no. And will you value yourself enough to let go of all that? Because the you that perceives things is far greater than the you that's planning the next step, or reasoning with you, or telling you what you like or you don't like.
Or being impatient with the present moment and wanting it to be a different moment.
Right. I don't like this moment. I'm going to
demand a better one. Want a better moment.
Well, I mean, that's what you see.
Yes.
And you said, do you realize what you're doing? That's always the question I ask. Do you understand what it is that you're doing right now?
No.
And they look at you like, well, I'm supposed to be demanding a better solution. That's what I'm doing. It's like, no, dear. No, you're not receiving what's actually being told to you. You're projecting what you think it should be, as opposed to what it is right now. It's difficult. It's difficult. You have to go around the dryer drum a few more times before all those edges are knocked off.
Yes, and suffering. Well, suffering will come and do that for you. And to the extent that it comes again and again, it means that you haven't had the edges knocked off yet. You're still holding on to your edges.
Well, you're hanging on to something that brings it right back to your face again. And people say, oh, I've let that go. I've forgiven that. I've processed that already. It's like, well, why is it bothering you again? If you really processed it, it shouldn't be bothering you at all. So that should be a sign that there's something there still. And you may need help.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. And, again, bringing it back to our experience with Christopher, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, ever. But these things come into people's lives. And in one way, you're lucky if it comes earlier. And people will say, what do you mean? Well, because earlier in your life, the earlier in your corporeal existence that you get these edges knocked off of you, the longer you may have to develop further, develop into the being that you really are, the realization. These things you learned when you, as Margaret said, when you reach the age of reason. People taught you that you should be demanding a better thing, and you believe them innocently. and you run off in this mode, and maybe it works sometimes, it doesn't work other times, but the ego is just fed either way. The real you, the being you, the you that when it was early enough in your life, you hadn't developed these lumps and edges. It understood the present moment viscerally. The present moment is where I am right now, and I'm going to enjoy these Legos or this cookie or whatever it is, this sand on the beach. And to the extent that you get that gunk stuck on you, it's nice if early in your life somehow it gets all knocked off again. And then in realization, in awareness, you say, oh, where did I get all that gunk put on me? I'm not gonna get that on again. I'm gonna keep myself away from that gunk. It's bad news. And then you can stay closer to yourself, the being self. Don't wait for that.
No. Sometimes I wonder, people don't really change unless it's hurting. I've had so many people tell me, oh no, you can learn this way. And what you're learning is how to accommodate your concept of what you think the world should be, as opposed to what is actually happening. But oh no, no, I can do this.
I don't need to suffer.
Right. We've got to be able to learn without suffering.
Well, I think that we have to suffer. But in any case, we've suffered through this hour.
That's true. And we have reached the end.
Yes.
So, I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael, and don't wait.
Now, live your life. And thank you for listening.